Today, we're going to talk all about the non-hormonal natural birth control method that I've used for over 10 years. Picture this. You're 33 years old. You've been off of any form of hormonal birth control for 11 years. No pills, no IUDs, and you haven't had to compromise and get a copper IUD, use those irritating contraceptive gels. You haven't had to try to find a diaphragm like it's 1985 or use a condom every single time. That's my real life true story. I'm Brandy Oswald, fertility awareness educator and founder of Sauvage Wellness, and I've been preventing pregnancy naturally for over a decade with nothing more than a thermometer, a paper cycle tracking chart, and daily observations of my cervical fluid. I've never had an unplanned pregnancy. I don't take the morning after pill. I have sex whenever I want to. I only use about 3 condoms a month. And I don't even always use the pull-out method. So how do I do it? I do it using the symptothermal double check method of fertility awareness. I know that sounds like a mouthful, but all it means is that I use a specific cycle tracking method of natural birth control that utilizes morning temperature and daily cervical fluid tracking to prevent pregnancy naturally. Before we dive into what exactly fertility awareness methods are and the inside scoop on the specific method that I use, let's talk about why I quit hormonal birth control in the first place. Like many of us, I was put on hormonal birth control by my doctor as soon as I became sexually active. Now, this was before IUDs were popular in the United States, so I was put on the birth control pill. I was given zero education on how the pill worked or the potential impacts it could have on my body. Within weeks of starting the pill, I had my first ever yeast infection. Within a few months, I had my first ever anxiety attack and began having debilitating gut health issues. Over the next 3 years that I was on the pill, I had 40 plus yeast infections, daily anxiety attacks, and raging digestive issues. After being told over and over again by doctors that my symptoms could not be caused by the pill, I decided I just couldn't take it anymore. And I ditched the pill just to see what would happen. Within a few months, the yeast infections disappeared. The anxiety subsided and my gut started to feel so much better. Unfortunately, I didn't learn until much later, after becoming a fertility awareness educator and menstrual cycle expert, that the hormonal birth control pill impacts so much more than just our menstrual cycles. In fact, many hormonal birth control methods change the way our brains work. This is because many hormonal birth control methods suppress ovulation, a process that starts in our brains. If we turn off ovulation, then we're turning off specific hormones and communication pathways in our brains. This has repercussions beyond just the menstrual cycle and our fertility. You might be asking yourself why the heck I chose cycle tracking methods as natural birth control when more popular non-hormonal options exist, like the copper IUD and contraceptive gels. Well, here's the deal. I wanted a natural birth control method, not just a non-hormonal method. While the copper IUD and contraceptive gels are not hormonal birth control methods, they are not natural. Copper coils do not naturally exist in the uterus or cervix, and chemical man-made gels do not naturally exist in the vagina. These are foreign objects and substances that are introduced to the body, which means they come with their own potential side effects. I wanted a truly natural birth control method. I wanted zero birth control side effects. And that's where fertility awareness methods came in. They are 100% natural cycle tracking methods of birth control that work by observing our naturally occurring fertility signs and symptoms that tell us where we are in our menstrual cycles and whether or not we can get pregnant on any given day. There are a variety of fertility awareness methods to choose from. I choose to use and to teach to my clients the symptothermal double check method. The symptothermal double check method of fertility awareness requires users to track both daily cervical fluid secretions and daily morning temperature, giving it an efficacy rating that is up to 99.6% effective when used as directed and learned from a trained educator. That's the same as the birth control pill and many other hormonal methods that exist. It's also higher, as far as I've seen, than any other fertility awareness method that uses only cervical fluid, only temperature, hormonal test strips, or past cycles data. The research study from which we source this statistic is the Petra-Frank-Herman study. You can read it on my blog. I'll link that to you in the caption below. It is the most robust study on the symptothermal method at the time of recording this video. Of course, the difference in efficacy between pharmaceutical methods and fertility awareness methods is the user, right? The efficacy is user dependent. That's why it's super important that we learn fertility awareness methods from folks who are trained to teach them to us, trained fertility awareness educators. The folks that are the experts in teaching these methods are, like myself, fertility awareness educators. We went to school to learn how to teach them to you. So using the symptothermal method, because of its high efficacy rating and robust cycle tracking data, was simply a no-brainer for me. The number one concern that I hear from prospective new clients is that they're worried that the natural birth control method is going to be too complicated and time-consuming, which they almost all report couldn't be further from the truth after they get started. So using the symptothermal double check method takes about 5 minutes a day to use. That's it. And we only keep track of two things: cervical fluid and basal body temperature. Cervical fluid is simply what you see and feel in your underwear and on toilet paper when going to the bathroom and walking and moving through your day. Depending on what the fluid looks like, it tells us whether we are about to ovulate, whether we're nearing our periods, or somewhere in between. Rising estrogen levels as the body gears up for ovulation leads to the creation of very specific and noticeable changes in cervical fluid, what we call fertile type fluids. Because cervical fluid can tell us when our bodies are gearing up for ovulation, we can use that information to avoid unprotected intercourse on those fertile days leading up to ovulation. Basal body temperature, or your morning temperature, on the other hand, tells us that we have ovulated after it has happened, after ovulation has already happened. This is because our waking morning temperature rises slightly after ovulation as a result of rising progesterone levels made following ovulation itself. A sustained rise in temperature tells us we're making progesterone and are past the ovulatory and therefore fertile point in our menstrual cycle. We use the appearance of cervical fluid sensations to open the fertile window. We use the decline of fertile cervical fluid and a sustained rise in temperature to close the fertile window. That's how we do it. Now, I've been throwing around this term fertile window quite a lot. What exactly is that? The fertile window is the window of time we can get pregnant in any given menstrual cycle. And spoiler alert, it's not all the time. In any given menstrual cycle, we can get pregnant from intercourse on about 6 to 7 days. That's it. Oh, and they're all right in a row. It's not the Wild West free-for-all that we've been led to believe. We cannot get pregnant every time we have sex. The fertile window is a specific length because sperm can live inside the menstruating human's body for up to 5 or 6 days in optimal cervical fluid. That means it can wait around after sex for up to 6 days in hopes of ovulation occurring, right? It's hanging out, lingering, waiting for ovulation to happen, as long as there's optimal fertile cervical fluid present to support its survival. The egg, once released during ovulation, however, is only viable for conception for 12 to 24 hours. Rarely, we may release 2 eggs per cycle. They are always within the same fertile window and, in fact, within the same 24 to 48 hours. This is the case, let's say, for fraternal twins. This means that 5 to 6 day lifespan of sperm plus a 24-hour lifespan of the egg gives us a 6 to 7 day window during which pregnancy can take place. Before or after that window, it is biologically impossible to get pregnant. And again, I share my source for this information in the blog post that I'll link for you below. You might be thinking then, how does the symptothermal double check method know exactly when that fertile window is? Well, there are 4 specific rules that must be applied when using the symptothermal double check method to open and close the fertile window. 2 rules to open the window and 2 rules to close the window. The rules to open the fertile window are based on real-time cervical fluid observations and cycle length. The rules to close the fertile window are based on real-time cervical fluid observations and daily temperature tracking. I teach my clients how to use all 4 of these rules in my Cycle Wisdom course. Now, contrary to popular belief, the symptothermal double check method can also work for folks with irregular cycles. And this is because even with an irregular cycle, there will still be the same fertile window scenario. It just occurs less frequently. For example, folks with regular cycles ovulate once per month and therefore have 1 fertile window and 1 period per month. Folks with irregular cycles, however, ovulate once every few months or even more irregularly, which means they will have a fertile window and a period only as often as they ovulate. But the signs, symptoms, and rules are the same. Look for fertile changes in cervical fluid, keep an eye out for a sustained temperature rise, and apply all 4 rules to open and close the window, regardless of how regular our cycles are. At this point, you might be like, oh my God, Brandy, I need to learn more about this. And if so, you're not alone. That's why I created the 5-day free cycle tracking mini course. If you choose to join me in the free 5-day mini course, I will teach you exactly how hormonal birth control changes your brain and the surprising ways that the pill, the shot, the patch, the ring, and IUDs impact our bodies beyond just our menstrual cycles and our fertility. I'll also teach you why cycle tracking apps, the rings, the Apple Watch, and even devices like Natural Cycles are not effective natural birth control options. I'll teach you how to get started cycle tracking the right way using cervical fluid and basal body temperature. And I'll teach you how to use cycle tracking as natural birth control and, wait for it, to even have better periods. So if you're interested, I would love to have you join me in my free 5-day cycle tracking mini course. I'm going to put the link below for you here so that you can sign up and join me on this empowering journey to educate yourself on how your menstruating body truly works.